Hi, I'm a little Lupie and this is Not Just for Kids. As you may have picked up by now, the first half of this video will be a spoiler-free look at the movie The Road to El Dorado, and the second half will be a closer look at the characters and certain aspects of the plot that stood out to me. But don't worry, I'll give you fair warning before the spoilers start flying. Let me tell you a story. An old, forgotten tale shrouded in the dense fog of time. A tale of a more primitive time full of unreliable technology. The legend of the VHS tape. Yes, my friends, before this time of miracles in which you can stream movies directly to your TV, these bricks of plastic were the only way to watch films at home. It was a dark age in which you had to remember to manually rewind the tape after you'd finished watching it so that it was back at the start for next time. An age in which you would send up a silent prayer to the small gods of blowing on stuff to make it work in the hopes that it would play first time. So yeah, my brothers and I used to own this movie in VHS back in the day. One of 3 animated DreamWorks films we had in video that we used to watch all the time, the other 2 being Prince of Egypt and Joseph King of Dreams. It wasn't until relatively recently that I was scrolling through Netflix for a movie to put on in the background while I had friends round that I spotted this film on the list. Only one of my brothers was there at the time, but we both had the same stab of nostalgia and felt compelled to put it on. Needless to say, I remembered all the words to the songs. That's just the kind of sad person I am. But in my opinion, it was just as good as I remembered it. But how good was that really? Look, this movie is stupid. Like, really stupid. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a masterpiece of filmmaking that has stuck with me all these years with its profound message. It's just a fun movie that I still enjoy, and I think people can go back and watch if they remember it fondly. Or if they haven't seen it, we'll have a good time discovering what's so good about it. And stupid. Let's not forget the stupid here. Right, main characters. I'm going to have to apologise in advance for butchering any of these names. My broad Scottish accent was not built for Spanish words, and it's probably physically impossible for me to get them right. These 2 lovable rogues are Tulio and Miguel. They're con men and partners in crime who love to scam people out of their money. The ideal protagonist for a kids' film. Tulio is the more cynical of the 2 and a pessimist, but is also the quick thinker and usually the one that comes up with the plans. Miguel is the more innocent one, who's more of an optimist and a dreamer and always tries to see the bright side in situations. Next up, Chell, who we don't meet until a little later on in the movie. She's another con artist. Man, this movie is just full of great role models. She lives in the fabled city of El Dorado and helps the 2 understand things that are going on while they're in the city. The 2 opposing leaders in the city are the chief, I think, called Tani, and the high priest called Checo-Can. Why did I pick this movie? And I guess I should talk about the animals. First up is Altivo the warhorse, who can apparently understand Spanish. Look, I told you this movie was dumb. And this thing is... No, you know what? I refuse to talk about this. This thing is stupid. It was introduced in a musical montage so quickly you could miss it, and then it becomes essential to the plot. Twice. Get out of here. You're stupid and I hate you. Okay. Deep breaths. When I was younger, I distinctly remember liking the music, but going back and rewatching it now I'm older, I have to say it doesn't hold up as well. The instrumental work is fantastic, going for a combination effect of Spanish and South American influences that fits the movie well because of its setting. But the songs by Elton John... Look, I like the guy. Probably not as much as most people, but hey, that's just my personal taste. But his music here really does not fit the tone. I'll admit that they're catchy, they stick in your head. I was humming the tunes for ages after watching this film again, but they just take me out of the movie and I'm not completely sold on them. As an adult mind, like I said, I distinctly remember loving these songs as a kid, so your mileage may vary. Moving on to the animation. If you've watched DreamWorks' other 2D animated films, this style will be familiar to you. It's not as detailed or as well shaded as, say, The Prince of Egypt in my opinion, but it's colourful and full of energy and makes for a fun watch. I also like how they use a different style for the opening exposition, drawing on the art style used by the Aztecs to create a more authentic feel to the narrative. I also like that there's some historical accuracy. I'm going to emphasise the some here because to call this historically accurate would be a whopping great lie and plainly laughable. If you pay close attention to the weapons some of the warriors use, it's actually a macahuito, an Aztec club made of wood and obsidian. Like I said, this movie is no great piece of cinema history. It's just a fun, dumb film that you can sit and watch and laugh at. I do actually recommend you watch it, despite the fact that I've been a bit more critical of it than the other things I've featured on this show. I still enjoy it as an adult, and I don't think that's just the nostalgia talking. Something you might want to be aware of is that there is an implied sexual relationship between two of the characters. It's nothing too explicit, and I don't think that it's anything kids will even notice, but it's something that's been pointed out to me, so it's something you should be aware of. Anyway, now I'm going to look more closely at the film in
the spoiler zone. This is your final warning.
If you haven't watched the movie before deciding to watch the rest of this video, I'll give you a quick rundown of the plot so you're not really confused when I'm talking about more specific things later on. We open to exposition in the form of a song about the fabled city of El Dorado, the city of gold, that was apparently created by two gods riding a horse. Snake. Thing. Cut to Spain, and a big scary dude called Cortez riding the warhorse Altivo and talking about sailing to the New World. Then cut to our two main characters, Tulio and Miguel, winning a bunch of money from some not very happy sailors. The sailors then bet a map to El Dorado that they have, somehow, on the next roll of the dice, which Tulio wins. But then it's revealed that the two were using loaded dice to cheat, which obviously makes the sailors and the guards mad. Tulio distracts everyone by staging a fight with Miguel to give them an excuse to escape, which doesn't last long as they end up getting chased by the guards. And a bull. Don't ask. Through shenanigans, the two end up trapped in a couple of water barrels and don't free themselves until after they've been loaded onto a ship and the ship has set sail. It turns out that this is Cortez's ship and he plans to drop them off in Cuba to work in the plantations as punishment for being stowaways. They're locked in the brig but manage to escape with the help of Altivo, who is, I remind you, a horse that apparently understands Spanish. Through more shenanigans, Tulio, Miguel and Altivo end up in a rowboat with no provisions and completely lost at sea. They coincidentally land next to one of the markers on the map to El Dorado and decide to go find the City of Gold. After a musical montage, they run into Chell being chased by big Aztec-looking dudes, and the two are taken back to the city, where they are mistaken for the two gods that created the city. The two then decide to con a bunch of gold out of the people and get them to build a boat so they can return to Spain and be super rich and stuff. More shenanigans ensue, highlighted by Tulio getting together with Chell, Miguel falling in love with the city and its people, and the two almost losing a ball game. No, seriously, the ball game is actually really plot relevant. It's because of this game that Miguel gets cut and the high priest this guy notices and realises that he's not a god because, of course, gods don't bleed. Miguel and Tulio fall out because of reasons that I'll get into later, and then giant stone jaguar attack! Yeah. The high priest does this spell that means he can control this giant jaguar statue, and it pretty much just comes out of nowhere. The two end up confronting the priest on a cliff above a big whirlpool thing that's believed to be a gateway to the underworld. Don't worry, it is established, I just skipped over it because it's not really relevant. Tulio and Miguel employ the same tactic as before, staging a fight between them to distract their enemy before punching him out. It's very satisfying. Him and his stupid stone cat go flying off the cliff and everyone lives happily ever after. Or do they? Bum bum bum! Yes, Checo What's-It is still alive and has somehow, by complete coincidence, run into Cortez. Yeah, remember that guy? Now, Miguel was going to stay behind in El Dorado while Tulio was going to go back to Spain with Chell and a bunch of gold. But they come up with a plan to collapse the tunnel to the city so that Cortez can't get there, and it ends up going wrong, and Miguel ends up back in the ship with Tulio, and they end up sacrificing the boat with all the gold to save the city, and Cortez wanders off to go be irrelevant elsewhere. I have questions. Where did the map come from? How did the sailors get their hands on it in the first place? Why does everyone in the Lost City speak Spanish even though they've clearly never had any contact with Spanish colonists before? Like I said, this movie is dumb, but it makes me laugh and I really enjoy watching it. But this is what I found really interesting watching it this time around. The main characters are bad guys. We're introduced to them through a wanted poster, for goodness sake. It's made very clear from the beginning that they're liars and cheats. The first thing we see them do is scamming a bunch of sailors out of their money and running away from the guards. Miguel, who's arguably the better of the two, still helps with the cons and goes along with the plan to trick the people of El Dorado by posing as gods to get a bunch of gold from them. He's also shown to be very skilled at manipulating Tulio into doing what he wants. Heck, even Chell is a thief and a liar. We're introduced to her as she's running away from the warriors of El Dorado after having stolen a gold statue from the temple, then gets out of it by lying to the priest, saying that she was told by the gods, Tulio and Miguel, to show them the way to El Dorado. She helps them with their con by helping them understand the culture in El Dorado, and she knows full well from the start that they're just two guys pulling a scam. On a side note, I do like that she's equal to the guys. She's portrayed as just as clever, and she's sometimes patronised by Tulio, but she quickly smacks him down for it. I also like that, in the beginning, her relationship with Tulio is clearly just physical. It does develop into a more romantic relationship later, but I think it fits in well with their characters that begin by just basically having a sexual relationship. All this is just something I wouldn't have expected from a kids' film. They don't even change by the end. Yes, Tulio gives up the gold to save the city, and Miguel leaves with Tulio rather than live in the city as a god, but Miguel's decision was a spur-of-the-moment thing, and Tulio is the kind of person who's always seen the bigger picture. I think that it's clear that he's the kind of person who, when it comes down to it, wouldn't pick gold over saving people. See him being okay with stopping the human sacrifices, even though that could potentially reveal them as mortals. I also like that there's no true love triangle. Miguel is clearly attracted to Chell, but she's not into him, so he's just like, meh. The only reason he gets mad about her and Tulio's relationship is because he overhears them talking and Tulio thoughtlessly says, "Forget Miguel, we're trying to convince Chell to come back to Spain with him." It's obvious that Tulio doesn't really mean this, as he and Miguel are clearly close, and he was just saying that to persuade Chell, but it's the stem of their big fallout in the last act. The nice thing about that is that even though they're having a friendship-shattering disagreement, they still work very well together and know each other so well that they improvise and coordinate in the final fight together flawlessly. And can I just say, I know I said I didn't like the songs, but Friends Never Say Goodbye always makes me well up a little bit. Anyway, that's just what I picked up from this movie. As I've said, it's just dumb fun and you should give it a try. What do you think if you've already watched it? Let me know in the comments. I'm a little Lupie, and this has been Not Just for Kids. Our glorious city was built by the divinities, by gods who saw fit to bestow the gift of a paradise, peaceful and harmonious upon us mere mortals below. And made El Dorado the magnificent and golden 1,000 years ago. El Dorado, El Dorado, El Dorado.